It's Saturday evening. It's time to talk about the very best comic books in the world with our good friend Drew, Diva Drew, from deep inside Indiana.
Deep inside Indiana, snowy, cold, frozen tundra of Indiana. I am fantastic. I'm on my new laptop. Everything should be perfect today. So let's talk about these great comics this week.
Well, with that weather, it sounds like it could get downright depressing. And if that's what you're looking for, I've got the comic book series for you. Before we get into the good stuff, this Jason Aaron TMNT run, it was 4 issues. I'm going to concentrate on a single character each issue with a different artist. And I think we started out with Raphael, then Michelangelo, which I thought was a high moment, Leonardo, and now Donatello in the 4th issue, which is a continuation of what happened in TMNT Alpha, where Donatello is like imprisoned in the swamps of Florida or something like that, to be like, people pay to fight him like people pay to fight crocodiles or alligators or whatever. It was extremely depressing when I read TMNT Alpha. Now that we've gotten the expanded version of it, I hate it even more, and I don't know what to do with this Jason Aaron TMNT run. I don't want to go forward with it because I don't like what he's doing, but then Juan Ferre is coming in as a full-time artist, and I fucking love Juan Ferre. I'm like in this weird position to where I hate this take on the Turtles, but I want to see that art.
Yeah, we get this quite a bit, where we get terrible stories, but we have a great artist working on these terrible stories. We get it. Pretty much now, it's pretty much commonplace with Tom King, get these terrific artists on these terrible stories. But yeah, I hate when this happens. But yeah, I really do not know what to make of this series. And I shouldn't be surprised by this, because Jason Aaron is revealing to us, I think he's going to be revealing to us that the Turtles were going to be victims of Splinter and probably were abused by him. I wouldn't be surprised if we go down this route, because that's pretty much the only hand that he has, making stories depressing. But not just that, but each issue has been so tonally different. It's hard to get a lock on exactly what we can make of this. The Mikey issue, like you said, it was a perfectly fine ninja fighting issue. That was the high point of this so far. But this latest one with Donatello is just straight up depressing and weird. By the time you get to the end of this book, of the Donatello issue, I really don't know if Jason is trying to be funny, if he's trying to be depressing, if he's trying to be funny and depressing, because what he reveals, it's like, what the hell is going on here? But I will say, despite all of this, I think I will take this over the Sophie Campbell crap that we got, because at least I'm getting a reaction out of this.
That's the weird thing. You mentioned you get to the end, you finally have the 3 brothers arrive. Mm-hmm. To save Donatello. Donatello has actually saved himself. He's defeated the Foot Clan by himself. And it should be a big moment. They've been apart for a really long time, not just in this run, but prior to that, they'd been broken apart throughout the entire Sophie Campbell, 50-issue run. That was really, really terrible. And you should be excited. You should feel something like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad the brothers are back together. But it was so freaking depressing that by the time I got to that moment, I didn't really feel that. I was just like, oh God, he thinks the dead rat on his shoulder is Splinter. So he's absolutely insane. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, I really don't know if Jason is trying to be funny or if he's trying to be depressing, if he's trying to make, because it really is with Jason Aaron, you don't know what he could be doing. Because I guarantee you, some people were probably laughing at that scene. I'm guarantee you as well, Jason Aaron was probably laughing when he wrote that. But I'm just like, this is not what I signed up for with the Ninja Turtles. This is not what I wanted. This is not what I expected. It's not fun. Granted, I'm getting a reaction out of it, which says a lot, but it's not a reaction that I should be getting from a Ninja Turtle book. And if this is the path they're going down, it's going to be a very, very, very long 2025 and 2026 with Jason Aaron. Just buckle up. It's going to get bumpy. It's going to get ugly and nasty. And all the Turtle fans are going to be feeling like the Punisher fans and Wolverine fans and Superman fans because of Jason Aaron.
Absolutely. So that's going on there. We got the first 4 issues, not exactly anything to write home about, but thankfully there are some really good comic books this week. Starting out with Hyde Street, number 2, Jeff Johns writing, Ivan Reis on art. We finally get most of the backstory for Pranky, a.k.a. Pip. It turns out he was a Boy Scout. It seems like his father was a war hero, but he's not exactly nice to him, maybe beats him and stuff like that. And the other scouts weren't nice to him either. And this is a much tonally meaner and dirtier comic book than even TMNT that we just talked about. But he still is able to have some fun with it, he being Jeff Johns. When we see Pranky earning his burning the fucking tents down badges and getting people eaten by bears badges. Like, that was pretty crazy stuff.
I enjoyed it because this is what I wanted. This is what I expected in a Hyde Street book. And this really reminds me of a 1990s movie. It's a low-budget horror film called Mikey about a murdering junior from Problem Child or murdering Kevin McAllister. It's pretty much in that same vein with this. You have a murdering kid who's earning horrific merit badges, which is, I mean, it's a very dark, horrific comedy when you see how they're done here. And then we were introduced to a particular cop later on in this issue, and we're thinking that this cop is going to be stopping the kid. But is he? You got to read to find out. But in this issue, I got to give a huge shout out to Ivan Reis. His art in this issue is incredible. And we get a great homage to a Norman Rockwell painting in this. It's very beautifully illustrated. The fires, the monsters, and this, he actually took the time to look at a real cop's uniform and his equipment belt. It's all perfect. How do I know? Because my brother was a cop, and he said all the exact same equipment was in the exact same spot that he wore it as well. He did his research. Such a novel concept. I got to give this a strong recommendation this week. This is a very, very, very good read.
Absolutely. Really, really enjoyed that one. Now, something that's much more lighthearted than Hyde Street or TMNT is TMNT Saturday Morning Adventures number 19, Eric Burnham writing, Dan Schoening on art. This isn't exactly what I would want to see out of my mainline TMNT book, but as an homage, a continuation of the cartoon series, it's absolutely perfect. We've got this idiot goes on TV, says, I've got millions of dollars worth of gold and my security is so great no one could ever steal it. Of course, old Hob and fucking Krang and Shredder are going to try and steal it. And of course, the TMNT Turtles are like, hey, we should probably watch that out. And then we get the return of an old villain thinking that he's something new that's been reprogrammed. And it's just wall-to-wall fun and hijinks and crazy stuff like that. And if you like the cartoon, this is it.
Everything is pitch perfect to the animated series from the 1980s. It captures the heart of that animated series perfectly. Eric Burnham is a great all-ages writer in comic books. I got to give him the highest compliments. This is fun. Like you said, this is fun for all ages. You can read it with your kids, read it with your son. If you love the Ninja Turtle cartoons when you were a kid, you're an adult now, you should enjoy this as well, because this is what you should be expecting from a TMNT Saturday Morning Adventures book. Absolutely.
So at least TMNT fans had something to read this week. Also going to recommend Grommets number 6, Rick Remender, Brian Posehn writing, Brett Parson on art. This is one of those like little hidden gems that I discovered this year. Definitely it's all about growing up in the 80s and all that kind of stuff. And the two main characters have gotten themselves in over their heads. They decided that there was a small house party. The jocks got invited, and they got their asses kicked. And Hector, the main villain, the main jock, isn't done yet. He decides to pull out his gun. Things get very, very real. And finally, one of the stoner skater punks has to stand up for himself. And we learn some more details about their lives. I found it pretty relatable. This is much more of a like slice of life comic book, but it's something that I think is very well done. And I love the Brett Parson art.
I have to make a confession on this, Wes. I had to take a long break from reading this issue, and I couldn't finish it because, I mean, like you said, there's a point in this issue where you have a kid with a handgun hunting down another kid with the intent to shoot and kill this kid. It's a lot, and we went from a fun, coming of age story to a full-on 1995 Kids by Larry Clark. If you ever seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about, just minus the AIDS. But so, I mean, just reader beware with this content. It gets heavy. It makes a hard left turn about halfway through this book. I did not expect that at all. And I'm like, woof, this is a bit much. Maybe it's just me, Wes.
I don't know. I grew up in the country. We pulled guns on each other and stuff.
Okay. We didn't in the suburbs in Indiana.
We're also going to recommend Feral number 8, Tony Fleek's writing, Trish Forrester on art, continuing the cats trying to avoid rabies, zombies, epidemic in here. Me personally, I've kind of fallen off on this one. I expected it to kind of be over by now. I'm not sure where it's kind of going, but they've introduced a bunch of kittens and stuff like that. But this is much more your bag right now.
This was my pick of the week, and there are a lot of people who've been knocking Feral because it hasn't been like Stray Dogs with the suspense and tension. Well, hey, you called down the thunder, and now you got it. This issue of Feral was straight up just like Stray Dogs tonally. The suspense, the terror, and the tension just gradually building throughout this issue toward the payoffs that we get. Our cats are in this house that they think is safe, but Nothing is quite what it seems. As you're reading this and you're observing the layout of the things in the house, you know that something is wrong. There's a lot wrong with the situation, and it's straight up terrifying because these homes and homeowners actually exist. If you've ever seen Hoarders, you know what I'm talking about. Trish Forstner here, the artist, she does such a great job conveying the confusion, the tension, the terror, and the cult-like mentality as well from the cats who are already living there in this house. This is, in my opinion, the best issue of the series, and I highly encourage everyone give this series a shot. If you're not, fix yourself. I hate cats, and I love this series.
I hate cats, and I endorse that message. Our final indie comic book recommendation, Universal Monsters Frankenstein #4, Michael Walsh writing and illustrating a new take on a very old, well-known story. Obviously, everyone knows the story of Frankenstein, certainly the Universal adaptation of that, and there have been several movies about it. Now we have Michael Walsh throwing a spin on it with a different point of view character, exploring the Frankenstein character.
Yeah, as well as exploring different parts of the body, the anatomy from the monster. And in this issue in particular, this focuses on, how the eyes, how we observe the world and the people. Who do we see as the monsters? Is it who we think it is, or is it someone else? Or is it a group of people who are the monsters? The art in this issue is flipping perfect. Walsh does such a great job conveying the sadness, the fear, and the anger in everyone, from the townsfolk to the boy to the monster to Henry Frankenstein. And on top of that, we have a perfect, heartfelt ending to this miniseries. I'm not going to say what happens, but so we've gotten Dracula and the Creature from the Black Lagoon previously. They've been adapted, in my opinion, very lazily, mediocre, and underwhelming. But Frankenstein is the North Star to guide creators in how to adapt a story correctly. This is the strongest recommendations from Frankenstein. And if you're not reading this, once again, fix yourself.
Or you can't read it anymore. It's the final issue.
Very true. Yeah, read the trade paperback when it comes out.
So that'll do it for our indie comic book recommendations. Now let's move over to the big two, starting out with Marvel. Incredible Hulk 19, also known as Incredible Hulk 800, Phil Kennedy Johnson writing, Nick Klein on art. There's a couple of more backups in here. If you want to see Amadeus, Chud, Gogurt, Hulk, or whatever, there's a Greg Pak story. But the main event was definitely Phil Kennedy Johnson. They've been moving towards this for about 2 years now. And the Nick Klein art really is what sells this and kind of puts it over the top. There's a lot of strange body horror. In fact, I've read this entire thing. I'm not certain why certain things are happening or why they are the way that they're presented in this particular comic book. But we do finally get moving along with the eldest story. We actually almost get a completion to it with some different changes to Charlie and what's going on with her. And even a callback to the original story involving her with her father kind of coming back out into here. It's very interesting stuff. I just think there was a little bit of gobbledygook going on with some of the verbose language of the eldest.
Yes, I agree. There's a lot of gobbledygook here. Some of the dialogue does ramble on. But like you said, one of the reasons why I really want to recommend this issue is because of Nick Klein. Nick Klein brings out his inner Bernie Wrightson and Kelly Jones to illustrate a truly horrific Hulk story. I mean, this is my opinion, by far the best illustrated comic this week. So yeah, like you said, Hulk is a prisoner in this issue, and it isn't pretty at all. It is the stuff of nightmares. But yeah, we do get a kind of a conclusion to the Charlie story, and it's like, it's fine. But really, you are here. You're paying admission to see the horrific illustrations that Nick Klein is going to be bringing us, from the Skinwalkers to the Hulk to the transformations. He is a new king in artistic horror. But yeah, I highly recommend it. Everyone check this out for the Nick Klein art. I mean, it's a shame we can't get him on every issue, but when you see an issue like this, it's like, okay, I understand we're going to be getting him like every 2 or 3 issues, because he knocks it out of the park in this. As
somebody that falls along the solicitations, this is not the end of the Charlie story. She's still in the book.
Yay.
Moving over to DC Comics, big recommend for Green Arrow 18, Chris Condon writing, Montos on art. Me personally, I prefer the Mike Grell version of Green Arrow, but this is probably the most interesting repackaging of Green Arrow I've seen in a long time. Chris Condon has taken Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, and turned him into the most self-righteous dickweed I've ever seen in a comic book. And coming at the comic book from that perspective, that this dude thinks his shit don't stink and he's better than everybody else, and he likely has a serious drinking problem, I found it genuinely pillar to post, wall to wall, inter-fucking-taining. I loved it. I thought Montos's art was really, really good in this one. And just watching what an absolute elite scumbag Oliver Queen is made to be in this book, I found absolutely hilarious and entertaining.
Yeah, I really agree with what you just said there, because if you really go with what Denny, even going as far back as Denny O'Neil, with the type of personality he introduced to Oliver Queen and Green Arrow, what he believes in, his politics, this really goes in line to that self-righteousness of Oliver Queen to his core. And this is him to a T. This is pretty much how he would be in our modern day. And I may not like that type of person, but at least it's an interesting character and I can go along with this. But yeah, and I like you said, Montos, his art in this is awesome. This is how he draws Green Arrow in this. It is so damn beautiful. And like you said, I do agree I do love the Mike Grell take, how he's illustrated. But in this, I think this is the closest we've gotten art-wise to a Mike Grell interpretation of Green Arrow in a very, very long time. And I think this is probably the best costume of Green Arrow that we've gotten since before the New 52. And Green Arrow hunting down a serial killer is simple enough and fun enough. Take my money now. I'm there all day, any day. And I'll be there for the next issue. I cannot wait. Green Arrow is back on track. This is, if you liked Mike Grell and the Longbow Hunters, like that type of story, or a type of Denny O'Neil take on Green Arrow, very hard left take, this is it. You're going to have fun with this. This is a blast.
I found it absolutely hilarious. It's definitely one of my new favorite comic books. Enjoyed the hell out of that one. My final recommendation is going to be what I consider the best comic book of the week, Superman 20, Josh Williamson writing, Dan Mora on art. And what a difference Dan Mora makes. There's a thing here where they're fighting Doomsday, and we've got Superwoman, Lois Lane, and she's trying to punch him, and Superman literally flies around the world so we can mollywop him fucking from the blind side. It was one of the coolest pages of comic art I've seen in a very long time. This new version of Doomsday, this new advanced version that's evolved over time, the new Time Trapper, I think is a really interesting take on the character. Lots of fun fights in here. There's even a cool death that absolutely was sorely needed in Superman. To get rid of that character, he goes out in a blaze of fucking glory. I thought it was really well done. And I thought this comic book was a hoot, and it looks like $1 billion.
It does, and this was a real shot in the arm that the Superman run really needed, because I'm going to be honest with you, the Joshua Williams Superman run, I thought it was okay at best. It was not great. Jamal's art on it, when he was doing the art, it was good. It was really good. It wasn't great, but the stories were okay. But this one, this was that shot of adrenaline it really needed. But Dan Mora's art always helps. And I really believe this probably wasn't Dan Mora's best art, but it's still really, really damn good. And you could tell he was having a blast drawing the fight scenes in this between Superman, Superwoman, and Doomsday, because they are beautiful. The only thing I didn't really understand was the toward the end with the Superman's red levels, because I've been in and out of Superman. I didn't understand the red level thing. I'm like, is this kind of?
I'm not sure where that's coming from either, but apparently he's going red Superman, where he's got like this weird red energy going through and his eyes turn red, like some type of evil Superman.
Okay, cool. I'm down for that. I'm down to get that. But yeah, this was a straight up fun, action-packed issue of Superman. And look, if you're a true fan of Superman as core and if you like that an action-packed Superman story, this is what you're going to get as well. And the cliffhanger to this, what we're introduced to, if you read Superman Doomsday Hunter Prey back in the 1990s, they introduce a planet and a race that we hadn't seen since then, I think. I had to look that up. I'm like, oh my God, it's them. So I'm very curious to see where we're going to go down this path. So this should be a lot of fun. I am back on Superman train. This is going to be a blast.
Absolutely. DC Comics still doing a pretty darn good job. We got 2 good comic books from them this week. Had a lot of fun recording this one with my good friend Drew. Good luck with Indiana this week, and I do appreciate you coming on to talk about the best comic books of the week. If you need this, but in a longer format, our other good friend Jim from Weird Science and I think it's Wednesday, but it might be Thursday, we talk about all the new comic books, the best, the worst, and everything in between in the Hot or Not podcast. If you haven't checked that out, it's on Patreon. Exclusive to there. There's a link in the video description. Go check that out and see if you're interested in the Hot or Not show, which will also get you Doc Unfiltered in the Doc Q&A as well.